Hey guys, Cyndi Williams here. Welcome to the Bliss to Abundance podcast. Today we are talking about spooky destinations. If that sounds like fun, keep on listening. Welcome to Bliss to Abundance, the podcast for growth-minded travel entrepreneurs. All right, guys, welcome back. I have an amazing guest with me today, Miss Natalie Barber, who is my partner in crime when it comes to finding the coolest, spookiest, most fun destinations around the world at this time of the year, which is, of course, is Halloween season. Natalie and I both have a love for Halloween. So welcome, Natalie. We're so glad to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited about this particular session because I have decorated my house since the first week of September.
I love that so much. Yeah, and we actually did a version of this last year and it went crazy on the podcast. So I said, let's do some more. Let's bring some more spooky destinations. So it's all going to be about kind of me and Natalie's, fun trips we've booked for people to spooky destinations, or if you have clients who are really into seasonal travel or you're thinking about starting to market seasonal travel, these would be some fun ones for you to go after next fall season for sure. But Natalie, let's start with you. You're our guest today. What's one of the new ones that you have to bring to us this year?
Not as new. This one's particularly old. My daughter actually got to stay in the Myrtles Plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana.
Oh, wow.
And they do a whole haunted tour. It tends to book out pretty far in advance, especially this time of year. And she, who I've given the love of, passion of travel to, she created a whole bunch of content for me. And she said it was just the creepiest thing. And she stayed up all night because you're anticipating something happening, even if it doesn't.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
like, all your senses are heightened.
Oh, yeah, that's got to be so spooky, especially when you stay on property. I did that one time. I can't remember the hotel. I think we talked about it last year. It was in San Diego, and it was the anticipation, but also the TV turned on in the middle of the night. Like, it was a spooky, spooky situation. So did anything crazy happen to her, or did she think was happening?
She thought she caught something in the mirror, but wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah.
So, but that was her second hotel this year. I accidentally booked the Driscoll in Austin.
Oh,
Because I love a good haunt, but the older I get, I didn't know I wanted to stay overnight. And as we pull up, because it was an old bank, of course, during the Western time, and I was like, this place looks awfully old and
yeah.
familiar. And sure enough, we of course Googled it, and the Driscoll's pretty haunted as well. So she got a double whammy this year, and
Mhm.
she has decided how cool would it be if we just added like a blurb to the agency, and she would be my expert spooky person and stay with me in all these haunted places.
That would be such a good YouTube series. That would be so fun to watch. It's so funny you bring up the Driscoll because I was looking for, they showed up on Hyatt Points recently. So I don't know
Right.
if they just kind of got accepted. So if your clients have Hyatt Points or, they're collecting Hyatt Points with the Driscoll, you can actually book. And they even had suites on there. I was very surprised. But yeah, it was for a birthday weekend. I'm like, I don't know. if I
Do
want
I want to cry in my sleep while I'm awaiting the
I
ghost, or do I want
know.
to?
I know.
But it's
I'm kind of like you. I would definitely have done it in my younger days, but now I'm kind of like, what I feel like once you have kids, you're like not trying to mess around with the paranormal anymore.
That's a little bit that I jokingly said to her, because of course we had two queens. She's almost 20, and I was like, "Do you want to sleep with mommy?" And she's like, "No, you're on your own."
She's like, forget this. This is no fun. Well, one of the ones that I was, as I was, I remembered I did this for a client like a while ago, but they really wanted to see the catacombs in Paris, France. So if you guys don't know, there's about the remains of 6 million people in the catacombs, which is insane. There was even a guy that got lost in there way back in like 1793, and they didn't find him until like 1904, and he was only a few feet from the exit. Oh my gosh, but it is so spooky. I've never been myself, but you've seen the pictures of like the skulls all kind of stacked up. It just looks like the spookiest place ever. And it's right in Paris, right there
It's,
underneath the city.
I think Rome has one as well underneath the Colosseum or near the Colosseum.
Yep.
So, you don't have to stay overnight. You could, of course, just do a walking tour. I mean, it's all
Yeah.
packed in with so much history.
I would
I think
definitely, based on that guy that got lost, though, I would always go with a guide. I'm gonna have to insist on that.
I need a team. I need somebody with a flashlight. I need a legit
one of those
guest
helmets with like the construction workers with a big light on the front. Yeah, I'm gonna need all of that.
through the haunted house, and you're all like tethered together. That
Oh,
would work.
yes. And so I did do the Tower of London though, so neighbor to Paris, if you will. But Tower of London was very fascinating because of all of the history. Over 900 years of tortures and torturing and execution. So lots of ghosts. I remember there, I remember it was a lot of walking, a lot of stairs, and it was super spooky. It was exactly what you would expect. It was cold and it was dark, and I just thought about the people that were like stuck there as prisoners. It must have just been like a horrible experience. Have you ever been to the Tower of London?
Haven't. It's on my list. We were talking about a senior trip for the boys in about 3 years,
Oh,
and we talked
nice.
about doing Scotland and London.
Mm,
And I always try to think about what would keep teenagers interested.
yeah.
I'm a big history person. You could talk to me about the most boring thing, and I would think it's fascinating. But then when you tie it in with something like, "Oh, we tortured all these people," then the teenagers are like, "Well,
They're like,
that's
whoa,
kind of
let me learn a little more about that.
right."
I love
So
that. So good. And you
so
had another one that you wanted to talk about with the Queen Mary, right?
correct. So the Queen Mary is not dry docked because she's on the water in California, the Long Beach area, and they just completely finished a renovation. So it's always preserved and really well done. But now they're reopened and they're booking again, and it's one of the most haunted destinations and unique destinations in all of America.
Mm-hmm. That's fascinating. So, and I know because um, we had one of the reps on from Kennard, and they had given us like talked about that particular. There's a particular cabin that's supposed to be haunted, and it's a really like spooky thing. Like people have seen ghosts outside and in it and things like that. So there's a lot of history there. If you have guests going on the ship, it's worth it, especially if they're into that whole spooky thing, to do a little research on that for sure.
Absolutely.
And then the
Absolutely.
last one I had, Natalie, was Bran Castle in Romania. So this is, it's kind of the home to the fictitious home of Count Dracula. So it's not really, obviously, because Dracula's hopefully not a real thing. But they say that the writer of the Dracula stories, that it was based on this castle, or they think it was based on this castle. And because of that, there's a lot of tourism to Bran Castle. The locals there say that there are ghosts that, kind of haunt the local town and the area, that leads into the lore of, are they vampires? Are they not? We don't know. So I haven't been to that one, but that is definitely on my list because I love castles when I go to Europe. So same as you, my kids are getting older. They're teenagers now. So it's kind of like that would be a fun one for us to kind of go and check out. So
And I think the name Transylvania just sounds really unique and spooky.
yeah,
And it's breathtakingly beautiful, right? Like
yeah.
you're in Romania, you're in these particular areas that have cliff sides and beautiful water, old castles. It's like walking into a storybook.
Yes, it really is. And that's a fun thing too. Like, especially like you might have families or people that are traveling that they don't want to go all out on a spooky tour. They're not like I do actually have a few clients where they do like Halloween Horror Nights every year. They do
Right.
the VIP tour. They're all into anything spooky. Like if I call and pitch them spooky trip somewhere, they're like, here's my credit card. But you can also find that happy medium if people have teenagers, or you really want to consider, kind of that age group. So I think, just knowing some of those things are kind of like fun facts you can share with your clients for sure. But any tips from you, Natalie, on booking, spooky travel for the travel agents that follow the show?
When you book pretty far in advance. So like the Stanley Hotel where Stephen King wrote his novel The Shining, they have events
Mm-hmm.
all the time throughout the year, but they really beef it up during October. Well, of course, you need to book that out in a year in advance so you can have those rooms, especially when you're booking a very specific room. So if
Mm-hmm.
it's the room where all the haunt and jaunts happen or where somebody wrote their novel, that can book up a year to 2 years in advance. So create your marketing as soon as you can for certain seasons, and let your
Mm-hmm.
clients know that this in fact will book up, because it does.
Yeah,
So just
absolutely.
being ahead of the game makes a difference.
Yeah, that's a great tip. And one of the fun things I always try to look for client gifts that are kind of on point for the thing that I'm booking. So I think really like if you're sending them to Brands Castle, like go ahead and drop them the novel. That would be a fun thing like for them to read in advance or on the plane ride over. or some of the history. There's a lot of, you know, information, or it could just be about the destination too. That might be a fun thing to kind of tie in the whole spooky theme, or, you know, pass something on to the teenagers too if they're going to be
Absolutely.
traveling.
Absolutely.
Good. Well, guys, thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope you got some scary ideas. I want to thank the owner, Natalie Barber of Travel Tribe Co., for being on the show today. She runs a fantastic agency, and I just love her to death. Go check her out and follow her on social media as well. And guys, if you're listening to this on the podcast, you need to go immediately over to YouTube and watch this video, because I have my set all decorated for Halloween, and Natalie has the spookiest witch you've ever seen staring over her shoulder. She loves to use it to scare her dog. So don't forget to check us out on YouTube and follow us over there. But thanks for joining us today, Natalie, on the podcast. Bye, guys.